Hi, my name is Brian Law, and I was working with Hitachi GE Nuclear Energy for 2 months starting in January. On about Friday afternoon, I experienced an earthquake that no one could have prepared me for. At first, it seemed like it was just like any other earthquake, but then all of a sudden, things just seemed to escalate, and I wasn't sure exactly what was going on. At first, I looked around and I saw people were starting to go under their desk, and I realized that's probably a smart choice for me to do right now. So I hid under the desk, and it seemed like about 2 minutes, and things were just shaking back and forth, and the lights went off, some cabinets were falling, and it was quite a frightening scene. After the event, though, we evacuated the building, and I exchanged phone numbers with my supervisors. But the biggest assumption I had at that time was that we would have wireless communications, and even though I exchanged phone numbers with my supervisors, they said it was safe to walk home now. When I went home to my apartment, I already knew a handful of people there, and I wasn't sure exactly what was going on still. At that time, there was no power, there was no water as well, and I couldn't check the internet or even call home and to say that I was alright. So, the first thing I would recommend that when you go to Japan is to pick up a couple of few items just in case for an event like this. The first item I would recommend is a flashlight, especially when it gets dark there. For me, I couldn't find my flashlight because everything was a mess. I mean, but not only the items were shifted, but everything was on the ground, and it was quite a troublesome task just to find some of the smaller items. So my second recommendation is to put everything that I recommend today inside just, a plastic bag, because that way you know where the items are. So after, when I got home, I managed to get in contact with some of the people that I was living with, and I followed them to a elementary school gym for the night. And I spent the night there, and I realized that the power was still not going to go on, and I was pretty much relying on the locals there to understand the full situation. So the next morning, I realized I kind of had to get out of the city I was in because, well, the food portions were starting to get low, and there's still no water and electricity, and the locals couldn't really tell me exactly what was going on at the time, and I don't really blame them because how would they know as well, right? So in my situation, it usually only takes an hour and a half by train to get to Tokyo. On that day, the trains weren't working, and as well the buses were down because the highways were severely damaged by the earthquake. So it took me a total of 14 hours just to get to Tokyo that day. And I was very fortunate to meet the people that I did because if it weren't for them, I wouldn't have gotten there that soon actually. So some of the recommendations that I would have for you is that when you do get to Japan, that you be prepared. And some of these items include the flashlight, like I mentioned, the plastic bag, and even just like some water that you would put in the bag as well, because you would never imagine that water would become such a big commodity at the time. And I highly recommend you just packing some water just in case in an event like this. And furthermore, I was actually planning to go to Hiroshima that weekend, and I was very, very fortunate enough to take out some money the night before the event. So even though you will probably get um, a bank card, I would still recommend that you take maybe 10,000 yen and just put it in somewhere safe, just so you know you have some cash at home, and just in case that you have to pay that taxi ride off or something like that. And another thing I would recommend is an English-Japanese dictionary because that was very helpful, especially when I couldn't use the internet to, like Google like what I was trying to find, and just trying to talk to the locals, and I didn't really speak that well of Japanese at the time. So I would highly recommend picking up one of those just so you can somehow communicate with them and just ask some questions. And lastly, this may sound really, really easy, but just to have a piece of paper with all the numbers that you would have, like emergency contact info, but not just like everybody knows how to call home, but do you know how to call home from Japan? And that's the real key, is to have the exact digits that would call home. For me, I was very, very fortunate that I had a cell phone, but even then, I only managed to call home once on that cell phone because I would usually just use Skype with my family. So it's important that you try to call home at least once so you know exactly what digits you have to punch in. And worst comes to worst, you should also have Yuko or Jenny's contact information on this piece of paper as well. And all these items you should definitely put in a plastic bag. It's just much easier for you to know where all these items are, and you don't have to spend the time to try and dig out where all these items are. And most importantly, don't be afraid to ask for help. I mean, I wouldn't have gotten out of Japan as fast as I did if I didn't ask strangers for help. And living in Japan, everybody's just so extremely friendly, and they're more than willing to help you. Well, that's it. I definitely wish you guys an amazing experience in Japan, and most importantly, to stay safe and definitely have a lot of fun. Take care.